Welcome to the Stringers Podcast number 6. It's a half dozen. A lot of great things come in half dozens. You got eggs, donuts, other stuff, and podcasts. This week, we are excited to bring you Jeffrey Garriock. And if you haven't heard of Jeffrey Garriock, then you should know about Jeffrey Garriock. Unbelievable cinematographer and photographer, travels the world. He's been up mountains, under the seas, at Jeffrey Garriock on Twitter, at Jeffrey Garriock on Instagram. But first, Kylie.
Hey.
You jumped the gun. I didn't introduce you yet. We're just getting off a little bit of Canadian Thanksgiving. How was yours?
My stomach's still full.
Is it full?
Yeah.
Was it? Are you a turkey family, or do you kind of go down different food roads?
No, we're all about the ham in our family.
You're all with the ham in your family?
Yeah, the whole ham.
Do you do, like, with your ham, do you put the little bit of mustard on your plate, and then you cut your ham?
I'm not a mustard girl.
Oh.
No.
You know what? I was surprised. I don't even know what the telltale signs of a mustard girl is, but I thought for sure you'd be down with the mustard.
No.
So no?
Ketchup all the way.
Ketchup with ham?
Yeah, ketchup. Well, not with ham, but I'm a ketchup girl.
I was going to say.
I'm a ketchup girl.
You're a ketchup girl.
Yeah.
So what we have to do over the coming weeks is determine what makes a ketchup girl and a mustard girl, and if there are any other types of girls out there. Kylie,
yes.
We had Thanksgiving last weekend. What do we have coming up this weekend?
This weekend, Friday at, where is it? The Steady Cafe and Bar on Bloor Street. It's a drunken cinema, Friday the 13th, Part 7 screening. Apparently, it's like an interactive drinking game, and you can win, like, prizes. I'm not too sure, like, all the details.
How do you win prizes?
Sure.
The biggest prize might be covering my tab from that night.
It's only $8 to go watch it, too.
Oh, my goodness. So Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, on Friday the 13th.
On Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
On Bloor.
Yeah, on Bloor at
the
Steady Cafe Bar.
We're going back to our drinking weekends, apparently, with a drink and watch. What else do you have going on?
Saturday, Cineplex. It's free movie day all day.
Get the fuck out.
No, seriously. Anywhere. Well, I think they have a list of, like, where you can go watch free movies, but I'm pretty sure it's almost everywhere.
Now, I'm curious if it's current movies or if it's or they're just like rolling out some classics.
They might get you there.
If I didn't have a shoot on Saturday, I would just hunker down and, like, buy a gallon of popcorn.
Yeah.
I'd be done.
Yeah. And on Sunday, it's Canada Land. I thought you'd like this one. It's Hot Dogs Podcast Festival.
Yeah.
At Ted Rogers Cinema.
How are we not invited?
I don't know.
Well, we got to get on this.
Yeah, I know.
This is a mess.
It is $29, but
I can afford $29.
Yeah.
To go support those who podcast and have to buy all their equipment and bring in guests and feed them snacks. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but $29 is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
That sounds
a good weekend.
Pretty incredible, and you get your drinking out of the way on Friday the 13th. And then we can be responsible.
Yeah. No.
All right. So Jeffrey Garriock's coming up. I feel bad. I want to apologize to him and to you. This was at the end of a very, very long day. So if I seem a little bit dopey, if not all my energy is there, I was trying. It was just a long day. And if you hate it that much, we'll bring Jeffrey back. But first, I was in California on the weekend.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Got to see the Foo Fighters play, and they did something I've never seen them do before. And that was run some covers, like, come together. It was unbelievable. They also brought, like, guests up on stage, and so they had the lead singer from The Kills, and they had Liam Gallagher come up, and they also had David Koz. Do you know what David Koz does?
No, I don't.
Not even a guess?
No.
He plays the sax. Painting-y stuff.
That's good, because I have to say, I hate to sound mean, but it's kind of like a really depressing office, like at the moment.
Totally. It's like I just moved in and I haven't unpacked yet.
There's a lot of potential. A lot of potential.
There's tons of potential.
But it's like, especially with the banker's lamps, I feel like I've walked into 1982 and I needed
I
one.
like my lamps, actually. I think I have another one to bring in, too. I think the idea is that every desk that's in here is going to have a different type of lamp on it.
Okay. This is nice,
It'll have
though.
2 desks. Thank you.
Is it just you?
Yeah, for now.
All right.
It's just like Space Monkey Media in here.
Oh,
if that-
yes,
so
of course.
It's just the one company in here. At the moment, yeah, it's just, well, Kylie's here too.
Yeah,
hey, Kylie.
I'm here.
Oh, hey.
There's more than one. There is 2. Jeffrey Garriock joining the podcast. Jeff, what's up, pal?
I'm not much. I was actually really excited. I was just trying to think the whole way over here on something clever to say during the cold open that I was expecting, because I was listening to the first few episodes, and as you can tell, I came up with nothing other than mercilessly criticizing your office.
It's okay. Hey, man, it sets the bar. It gives me a spot to reach to. It gets on me, right? And again, we've only been here 2 weeks now, but it gets on me that it's not where I want it to be, obviously. But at the same time, that's why patience is a virtue, and it'll all come, and you can't have it all overnight.
No, man, it's going to be big things in here, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I just got to get... I have got to get a contractor in here to just do all the wiring and wire all the TVs and hang all the TVs and all that junk.
Get that good Wi-Fi in here.
Get the good Wi-Fi, the cold pressed Wi-Fi. Right now, if you were to look at my office, I have a TV. I have the cable is in here, and the TV is just resting on my couch.
It's still on.
It's still on from earlier this morning.
Amazing.
And we were watching Manhunter earlier.
Man Tracker.
Yeah.
Is it different than Manhunter?
Yeah.
Are there
Manhunter
2?
was a sequel to the Silence of the Lambs, and Man Tracker is a dude in a cowboy hat chasing people.
Whoa,
through the
wait!
woods.
There's a sequel to Silence of the Lambs that wasn't
Hannibal.
Hannibal.
Yeah, well, and then there's Red Dragon as well. But
I saw
it's a
Red
prequel.
Dragon.
Yes, then there's Manhunter, I think, or maybe that was the name of the book. Don't quote me on
quote
this,
you on that.
But there is an iteration of a Hannibal Lecter story, and it's called Manhunter. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
See? Look, Mr. Film Guy, I learn every time I'm around you. What else I learn is all the places you've traveled in the world. Where have you been? That was a really bad intro, but that's
good segue, though.
Good segue. You know what? It's been a long day.
Hey, man, it's all good. It's been a long day.
No one knows what time it is. It's 11 a.m. in the morning. No.
Yeah, totally.
It's been a long day. Where have you been recently, though? You are always on the road. I can never track you down.
Yeah, no, I was here a surprising amount lately, but this year has been pretty insane. I mean, since the beginning of 2017, I was in Guatemala, I was in Nicaragua, I was in Svalbard, Greenland, Senegal, and Nigeria, and the Ivory Coast. And then I think I'm missing one. Oh, and Norway and Iceland. And then coming up is Florida week after next. And then I'm going to...
That's like the most normal of them all.
Well, and then Saskatchewan. That would be the most normal.
Going to Florida, and then I'm going to Saskatchewan.
Just, finish the year strong.
Yeah,
you still got to start the year strong and end the year strong.
What do you have going on in Florida and Saskatchewan?
Florida is like sitting down and drinking a beer, hopefully, with the family.
Oh, it's chilling?
Yeah, I never go away.
Very nice.
People say things to me like, man, your life must be so great. You go on vacation all the time, as I'm sure they say to you when you Instagram from like a Florida hotel room when you've been shooting for 18 and a half hours. But it's not like that. It's work. It's always work. And so this is like the one occasion of the year where it's actually not work for once. So my entire family's going. We've been going for like since I was a little kid. And yeah, it's exciting.
You were in Iceland, you said. Were you scuba diving in Iceland this year?
This time, no. But my friend who introduced me basically to scuba diving in Iceland came here to dive in Toblerone.
Oh, no
So
way.
I kind of did the other way around this time, which was quite cool. He was a guide diving in Iceland for many years, and he's a marine archaeologist, so he still is diving over there quite a lot on like Danish shipwrecks from from 1,000 years ago. So I was like, come see Canada.
From 1,000 years ago.
1,000 years ago.
1,000 years ago.
That is almost what I said.
It's almost 1,000 years.
That's one of those things I think we should bring back, though. 1,000. It's like when people say, what time is it? I think you should say, it's 40 after. Well, how come that's not a thing? How come that's less valid than it's 22?
It's 22. Yeah, why do we have to start counting down?
I don't know.
That's
right?
not fair.
It's the same reason in English for some reason. 11 and 12
aren't teens?
No, they're not teens. How come? I want one teen and two teen, so we can have a uniform.
It's strictly to work around our 12-hour clock.
guess, but even then, like the first 9 and then 10 and then 11 and 12, like
they all kind of sound the same. As soon as you hit 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
There's suddenly order and a system? Why is that a bad thing? I don't know, man. I don't know about this. I mean, it could be worse. We could be counting in French, which makes even less sense.
I was going to say it makes even more sense because if you want to go to 99, it's 4 20s, a 10, and a 9. And you go, well, you know what? It's math and it's spelling.
I don't have time for math and spelling. I just need to know how many seconds are left in the hockey game.
It was like, I remember when it was 1999 and we had French class and it was like the worst trying to say it or spell it.
Yeah. The only number I can still say is 1998, which is 1998. And that's because that's when the ice storm was.
Neuf. That's the next one. 90s. Neuf. And then you got 1999.
Fair enough.
2000 got me stumped.
2000? My French friends can correct me on that one.
2008. This is turning to French for English Canadians.
French by English Canadians.
French by English Canadians for English Canadians. One of the most interesting things that I learned from you is when diving in Iceland, you get to witness, I don't want to call it a phenomenon, a geological structure.
Yeah, you could say phenomenon.
Phenomenon that I don't know I've even ever heard of anywhere else in the world.
It's unique just because most of the time it's like well at the bottom of the sea, and they sort of have a few places that are like this that are unique to them, that because most of the time these things happen so far down that humans can't be there, and you have to go with very expensive robots and long cords, and it's like something reserved for National Geographic and for James Cameron and people like that. But in Iceland, the main attraction that people go there, and that's why I originally wanted to go there, is it's called the Silfra Crack, and Silfra means silver lady, and the crack, basically it's the divide between the two continental plates, between the North American and the European continental plate, and there are two divergent plates, and because Iceland sits right on basically on the line between them, the crack runs through the country, and it runs like through the whole country on a diagonal, which is amazing. So some parts of it's just on land, and you'll just see these two pieces being pulled apart like a giant chop to the land with an axe, and then other parts they're flooded with water. So that's where the Silfra Crack comes in. Is it's been filled with water, and it's glacial runoff, so it's freezing cold. It's like 2 degrees Celsius no matter when you're there, what time of year. And yeah, and they're divergent plates, so they move by, I believe it's 2 millimeters a year apart.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Considering that we're talking about tectonic plates, 2 millimeters is a shit ton.
Iceland goes big on everything tectonic, though. Like, they're I don't know if you remember the ash cloud in 2010. Do you know the name of that volcano?
Mm-mm.
Oh, no, nobody does. And there's wonderful clips you can watch online of newscasters from all over the world desperately trying to pronounce it, but it's Eyjafjallajökull.
One more time for the listeners.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Yeah, I believe you only because you were able to do the same, like...
the same mouth sounds
twice.
2 times? Yeah, no, like they had an eruption. I don't think it was that one. It was, I believe, it was a volcano called Katla, and it created 11 miles of new coastline. Like I think in the 60s. So like they go big with everything.
So you're scuba diving in Iceland, and there's these two tectonic plates moving apart at 2 millimeters per year. How close are they for you when you're underwater?
At the closest point, you can reach out and you can touch North America with one hand and then Europe with the other hand.
I'm doing a dance that no one can see but the ones in this room because I think it's the coolest shit you could ever do.
It's cool. It's a cool feeling to be there. And the other thing is like the visibility, because it's glacial runoff. Like the water's so clear, like it's absurdly clear. People get vertigo from looking down because they feel like they're going to fall. So you have this crystal clear, like cloven ditch through the two continental plates, and you can touch both sides at the same time, and it's pretty magical. It's a
that
really
just blew
amazing.
my mind.
Right?
If you heard a sound in the background, it was Kylie's brain splattering against the back wall. Have you ever scuba dived anywhere warm? Because if I want to try scuba diving, it might not be in Iceland.
I don't know, man. It's good over there.
By the name, still doesn't sound like my kind of country. Where's Beachland? Do we have a Beachland somewhere?
I feel like they owe us one. If we're going to have Iceland, we should have Beachland.
It's like we need an Iceland, we have a Greenland, We now need a beachland and an airland, and we're kind of safe.
I feel like Greenland is also kind of a cop-out because we don't have lands for any of the other colors. Like, is there a blue land? You know what I mean?
Very good point.
Yeah.
Canada could be Redland or Russia.
Or
it
Russia.
both kind of works.
We'll have to rock, paper, scissors for it. Or play like a best of 7 hockey series or something.
That actually is a very Canada-Russia thing to do.
Yeah.
Get the rivalry back and alive. Have you scuba dived anywhere warm?
Yeah, sure.
Nice.
Nice. It's very nice in Iceland, but yeah, no, all over the place. Last year, I was in Thailand diving, which is very nice. It's like bath water. It's like 31 degrees. You just wear a bathing suit and nothing else, and then you go in, and it's nice. It's a lot easier. The Iceland type of thing is really prohibitive. You have to really want it. Whereas Thailand, you just jump in,
swim,
and then it's easy. Although when I was there, I was doing my rescue dive certification, so it was a lot less like diving and looking at fish, and a lot more hauling tourists around who couldn't swim but thought scuba diving, that would be fine.
So I think what I should have probably introduced at the beginning, and I'm not saying until now, we met working in sports, film, and television. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why you get to do all these wicked adventures is you're doing it with a camera in your hand.
Yes.
And so you're traveling the world, experiencing all these cultures, all these different adventures through the lens of a camera, which I think is friggin' cool. I get to travel throughout North America for my work, but man, I want to get on like a 20-hour flight and go somewhere wild for work.
Because I don't want to get on a 20-hour flight ever, really. So, I mean, I'll trade you. No.
I'll do Thailand. You can do Columbus, Ohio.
I don't know if you want to give that. If you want to give up Columbus, Ohio.
I'll give up Columbus, Ohio. And second on my list, Houston, Texas. You can have Houston as well. I'll do a 2-for-1 deal even.
All right, okay. We'll have to make some trades. I feel like we should make up some trading cards and we can trade where we get to go.
There's city trading cards.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky that way. I mean, my camera has kind of been my passport to all of these places. I've always wanted to go and do these things, and I just, I'd never had the means or the money or only the motivation, and it was like, it wasn't until I started just going and doing it that I kind of built up a reel and a presence that people would say, hey, maybe we'll get this guy. Mm-hmm. And then I got very lucky and got to the point where people were actually calling me up and paying me to go some of the time, which is nice.
Some of the time.
Not all of the time.
Hopefully more often than not.
It's more often than not, yeah. But I mean, sometimes the free stuff is too good to pass up. Every now and then you'll get offered a job for like a not-for-profit or for a charity or for an NGO, and they don't have any money, but they will send you somewhere you never would have gone otherwise, and it's all expenses paid. So it's still then, I think, worth it for me to take that on, because you get to create something that's going to be really satisfying. It's the same sort of thing I would have liked to have been doing anyway. Like if it were a vacation, I would go and I would take pictures and I would do the same type of thing. And so sometimes that opportunity is worth it if it's going to take you somewhere that you wouldn't otherwise be able to go.
I would think if I heard about you or read your bio on the internet, I'd be like, this was a child born in international waters. You know, the one that doesn't belong to any one country, but kind of is a child of the world. But as it happens, we grew up in rival towns in southern Ontario. I'm a Newmarket, Ontario boy. Oh. Jeff is an Aurora, Ontario boy.
Oh, dear.
They're side by side. Aurora didn't like Newmarket because we made them smell bad, and Newmarket didn't like Aurora because they were better than us. Which is kind of the truth.
No, I mean, you nailed it, really.
Like we were the embarrassing cousin that you didn't want coming to the family gathering.
But you also had all the things. So, like growing up in Aurora, we didn't have a movie theater, we didn't have a mall, we didn't really have anything.
Well. Welcome inside the Newmarket borders.
So you weren't all bad. I did spend a lot of my high school misspent youth hanging out at Upper Canada Mall in Newmarket.
So did I. Yeah, what a coincidence!
What a strange coincidence. Well, because there was no Upper Canada Mall in Aurora, and there was no movie theater or anything to do. You could walk to from the one Tim Hortons to the other.
So, if you remember 13-year-old Jeff, was it in your had you already pictured, you're like, listen, I'm going to hang on to this camera and it's going to take me around the world? Did you have this plan set out for yourself from the onset?
No, it was kind of like...
You're supposed to say yes.
No. I'll tell you one thing. I did know that I wanted to be an underwater videographer from about that age. Because I went diving for the first time. I would have been 13 or 14. And on the boat, we had like a 3-hour boat ride on the way back. And on the boat on the way back, they played, it was VHS then, but they played the VHS that the videographer for the dive company had shot of us diving. So as you go back, you look on the screen on the boat, and there's you doing the dive that you just did. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. The cameras could go in the water, and that there were jobs going with that. And I said to my dad that day, I was like, I'm going to be an underwater videographer. So that part I had figured out a long time ago. But the whole travel and camera thing, those were sort of two separate things that very luckily came together.
So as you were progressing through your teen years and heading towards having to leave high school or take on the next chapter, where did your path lead you? Like, how did you get to traveling the world with your camera?
I don't know. I mean, so in high school, film was kind of like just what you did on the weekends. Like, I belonged to a terribly nerdy group of friends. I was not good at sports. I was really small, like 4'10", until like I was 18 or 19 years old, and too embarrassed to say anything or do anything out of order. So my friends and I would just make movies. That was like the one thing where I was like, this is fun. I understand this a little bit. My teacher that I connected with in high school, it was media arts was the class, but my teacher, who I was like, he's the cool teacher who actually speaks to me like a human being instead of another annoying kid. He was teaching us film and stuff. And so on the weekends, I don't know what other kids were doing, but I was going to my friend's house and we would make a movie. We would shoot, like the first thing we ever shot was called The Resident Gormley Vampire Project, and that was followed by Hobos Save the Earth, both of which I have a copy of. Maybe one day I will show you.
This needs to get on the internet.
No. That's one place it doesn't ever need to go.
It needs to definitely. I think everything has a spot. Every car has a parking spot on the internet.
Well, I don't know.
Every piece of media can find its way there, but and have a second life.
Never find its way off.
So after you're done with the Gormley residential vampire, and after the Hobo Saved the Earth, did you be like, oh man, people can actually make money at this? I say this because I remember the moment when I realized that film is more than just the 2 hours that I sit in front of a TV or in a movie theater, that there was someone who actually wrote this, and there are actors who acted in, where I saw it more than just the face value of the story, where I was like, no, someone actually gets to do this and create these ideas and watch them come to life.
It's funny. It took me a long time to get to that point as well, I think, to kind of separate that out. But once I was doing it with my friends, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. But I still wasn't thinking like this could be a job. I was just like, this is something that I would like to keep doing, not really thinking about my future or other stuff like that. But I knew the next thing to do was film school. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was trying to get going next.
That's where he has a 1-up on me. I never went to film school. Well,
sort of.
Definitely 3-up on me.
The film school that I went to was shut down for embezzling from their students shortly after I left.
You're joking me.
No, and I never technically graduated. So I don't know.
Can we get the name of the film school? I'm now really interested.
Well, it's reopened under, I think, almost the same name, actually. It was Toronto Film School.
And now it's Southern Ontario Major Metropolitan Film School of the Arts.
I think it's still called Toronto Film School, but they were a subsidiary of like the International Academy for Arts and Design, which was like a franchise of colleges all over Canada and the US. And I don't think it was like our school in particular. I think it was like the parent company that was doing it. And it was like, you knew something was going on because there were kids who would fail. And then the next term you would show up and there they were. And we would be like, I thought you failed. And they would be like, yeah, I did. But they said that I could come.
They said, as long as I pay my tuition on time, I can come back to school and bring my pencils and my protractor.
Yes, that sort of gives you a sense of the value of that education. I don't know how much of a 1-up that might be, but I did meet some great people there and I did learn a couple of things. So I have that at least to show for it. But it still wasn't going to be a job. I mean, now granted, this was a year before the great financial collapse of 2008. So back then, I was still under the impression that what happened was you went to college and then afterwards you were given a job.
With a large paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you can afford the extremely expensive Queen Street West apartment you've committed to as a student because, of course, the money is
it's coming. It's around the corner.
Around the corner,
It's
yeah.
right there. I can basically see it. I just have to go to payday loans and get the advance on my paycheck.
Yeah. What could be easier? So, that didn't happen.
That happened.
Yeah.
Everyone has an airport story. Everyone who travels has an airport story. I imagine that, my LAX airport story is probably quite mundane to some of the stuff you've experienced.
I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but can I hear your LAX airport story?
I made it up. I don't. It was just an example to try and get to the point. Actually, I do. I have an SFO story.
Okay, let's have that one. Let's have the real story.
No. I have all these. I have a couple different ones. My SFO story, San Francisco Airport. I was connecting through to Hawaii, and still with an hour and 30 minutes to go before my flight, they'd given my seat away.
Oof.
And they're like, no, we didn't think you were coming. I'm like, you knew I was on my last flight. I went and I had lunch and I still have 90 minutes for my next flight. Can I have my seat? And they said no. And so I had two options. I could either lose my shit and stay in San Francisco for a week, or I can take it up the backside and wait for the next flight. So I had to wait 4 more hours in SFO.
I had one recently where I was coming back from Guatemala this year, and my producer and I, where we had to fly, we were meant to just, I think, fly. Yeah, we flew Antigua to San Salvador and El Salvador, which is like 40 minutes, and then San Salvador straight to Toronto. So it should have been fine. And about 3.5 hours into the flight, they say, hey, everyone, so we're going to be making an unscheduled stop in Washington, D.C. And we're like, this is probably not a good thing. And they're just like, yeah, don't worry, everybody just, to remain calm. Everything's
getting
totally
extra
normal.
bottles of water.
Yeah, exactly. Which
normal
is
stuff. Emptying our waste bucket.
So the first thing usually to do when someone tells you not to panic is to panic, because there's probably a terrible problem. So we land, nobody knew anything that was going on, and they have this weird, like, Terminator-like machine in the Washington airport that it's basically, if you imagine a bus that's 4 buses wide and raised like 2 buses off the ground. It's at plane height.
Unlike monster truck wheels.
Sort of, yeah. And it's this weird giant, like you could easily drive another bus underneath it.
I'm pretty sure I drew one of these when I was 5 years old.
It very much looks like a child's drawing of a bus or of a van. Yeah, it's a very strange thing. So it comes and it takes you off the plane and then just leaves you in this strange limbo. So you can't go into the airport, but they also don't want to keep you on the plane. But there was no food, no water, and no information. So they kept us there for 6 hours.
Wow.
With not telling us anything. And then finally we find out, okay, so there was smoke coming from inside the plane, that's a good reason to land a plane.
Yep.
So I'm on board.
Yep.
But then they say there's not going to be another flight today. There's going to be a flight tomorrow. So we said, okay, that's fine. What do we do about now? They're like, if you go over there, they'll give you a hotel voucher. We said, all right, fine. So we go. This is like a
Never
Sunday.
believe them when they say that.
Well, now they did give us. Well, actually, no, we didn't actually receive anything. They're just like, go to the embassy suites, and we're like, all right, fine. So they're like, the shuttle's there. So we wait outside. 10 minutes pass. No shuttles come. 20 minutes pass. 30 minutes pass, and we realize we're I don't know if the shuttle's coming. So us and a few other passengers say, okay, well, we'll just get a cab. Take us to the embassy suites.
Of course.
We get in a cab, go to the embassy suites. We arrive, and we're like, hey, we're from the flight. Gave him the flight number. Do you have a room for us? And the guy goes, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because they hadn't set it up. It was because the guy took us to the wrong embassy suites.
Oh.
So there are 2 airport embassy suites
in Washington,
D.C. This is not something I had researched.
No.
I had no plans on being in Washington, D.C., and I didn't know what I was supposed to do now that I was there. So then we finally got an Uber to the correct embassy suites. We still managed to get there ahead of everybody who was waiting for the shuttle, but because it was Sunday night in Washington at the airport embassy suites, and all of a sudden they had 120 people that were going to be staying in the hotel who hadn't eaten in 6 or 7 hours. They had one guy in the kitchen.
Oh no! Poor
And I felt
guy.
bad for him. Yeah, like I
It's cool.
I'm grumpy.
I'll order pizza. It's good. Don't worry.
Well,
It'll be here quicker.
We got in there first, so we were like, okay, just whatever food exists. Give us
Yeah.
the fastest, most most, filling thing that you can make. But yeah, it was then another 2
Give you
hours.
13 dinner rolls and a glass of water and said, enjoy. That'll fill you up.
2 hours more for food. And then,
boy.
finally got to sleep, got home the next day. That was a disaster. I got interrogated at a different time by the Moroccan secret police. That was fun. Because
What do they call the Moroccan secret police in Morocco?
the acronym is DGSN. I don't know what it stands for.
Sounds like camera gear, actually.
It's the new DGSN.
Totally. I mounted it on my camera last night. I'm going to test it this weekend. I hear it goes up to 350 frames per second.
Oh yeah, you got to shoot 350 on the DGSN. But no, we
crystal clear, 8K.
It was a drone thing. It was like 2014 when still nobody knew what to do with drones, and we had gotten permission from the government. I had a thing that said DJI Phantom 2 flying camera, and I had permission. I had sign off. I had the stamp. And in Morocco, like the first language is French, and the second language is Arabic. And I mean, you heard my French earlier. You know exactly how much.
This is why our French lessons are so important. We're starting a new podcast starting next week. It's French Lessons by English Canadians.
Yeah.
Sign up.
You'll learn your numbers, and you'll learn how to explain, I have permission for this drone. But anyway, they would just their strategy was to tell me in French that I couldn't have it, and then when I responded in my pathetic French to get another guy who also didn't speak English in, and eventually it was me and 6 guys in this room at 2:00 in the morning, and I was like, I have permission, and finally a guy comes in and he made this motion with his hand like a helicopter. He's like, it's not for this kind of camera, and he makes a motion like he's got a shoulder mount, and he's like, it's for this kind of camera. We're taking it. You can have it back when you leave, but it's going in this locker. And so they kept it. I was like, at least I can have it back. Fine. So they kept it.
Wow.
And they charged me $150 for them to babysit it for a week.
And spend hours of my time in a room with 6 guys who none of them understood English.
I thought it was going to be me in the locker, and I'm glad it at least went that way.
I kind of thought they would throw it on the ground and shoot it in front of you. This is what we do. And I don't know why they have that accent.
That's the accent of the angry airport person, regardless of where you are, I think.
Doesn't matter what country you're in. Mm-hmm. I was on an airplane one time that I got a flat tire before we left.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were like, okay, everyone wants to get off. Actually, no. We just heard back. We're good. But they legit jacked up the plane with everyone on it. And so you're kind of tilted off to the side. And they changed the tire.
No.
Yeah, dead serious, with everyone on the plane. And the captain came back jokingly half an hour later. He's like, yeah, they're just replacing the hubcaps now. We should be on our way in 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
But yeah, they had to change a tire, and we were flying to Vancouver and then connecting through Vancouver down to the Pacific Northwest in the States, and we missed our connecting flight. And then that just led to a bunch of antics in the airport bar, as I think usually happens when you get delayed for too long and you're going a little stir crazy.
It's how many $13, bottles of Heineken can I afford?
I just tried to raid mini bar fridges, and because I think they only charge you 8 for those, and it'll get me drunk way quicker than those bottles of Heineken. Hammerkin. That's what I'm renaming it, and I'm not nearly as full at the end.
Oh, that works.
So you get out of college, film school, and it's right before 2008 happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I have this great desire and I have this wealth of knowledge because I've been building or making films for over a decade. What's your next step? Where does life lead you next?
I did what any sensible business person would do and
go to your parents and cry.
Yeah, move back in with my dad.
That's what I totally Same page right here.
That's what you do because you realize there's no jobs. You have no idea what you're doing. You're in over your head with an apartment you can't afford, and you don't have any money. So I moved back in with my dad, and I struggled along for a long time. And I took whatever odd jobs I could and did one shoot here and one shoot there. I remember my second cousin hired me to shoot something for a junior runners league in Toronto. That was one of my first big breaks just because I was actually outside shooting something with a camera. That was huge. And then eventually I met a guy that Michael Gelfand. Who
I do know Michael Gelfand.
Executive producer at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. But this was before that, a long time before that. He was working for himself at a production company called Look Mom Media, and we were volunteering. Both of us were volunteering at the Canadian Film Centre, the CFC, and I had a very wonderful stroke of luck where I arrived on set. I was meant to be like the assistant to the assistant camera person, and like one
Like a
person didn't
second
show
assistant.
up. There was an extra camera for some reason in the building. The other camera assistant is a guy I'd worked with before, and he goes, no, you don't want me, you want him. And then they were like, do you want to shoot some stuff? So all of a sudden I was shooting this thing, and Gelf comes up to me and is like, hey, what did you shoot a lot of stuff? I was like, yeah. And I bought a camera, which is one of the reasons I had no money. And it was the camera that we were using that day. I said, yeah, I have this camera. I'm looking to shoot anything. Like, let's talk. And so he hired me on to do like a corporate video for Rogers. I remember that. And that was the first thing. And then actually the second thing I did was digital signage for the Air Canada Centre.
Wow.
Yeah. Way back in the day for concerts. That would have been in like 2009, maybe, like a long time ago. Yeah. Eventually, after I worked there for a while, Michael got his job with the Leafs.
Yep.
He stopped coming into work at his own company. So it was just me.
As happens
Yeah.
when, you have a big opportunity in front of you.
Yeah. And so then it was just me going to work at his company. And then there was less and less work. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, he called me up, or I called him, and I was like, there's not really much going here. And he went, yeah, well, we might be able to get you a job here.
Amazing.
And then, he did. So thanks, Gelf. I saw him today, actually.
No way. You
Yeah.
guys ran into each other?
I
Were
did.
you on the same shoot?
Yeah. He was stopping by. We did like a big, giant 6-camera thing with the Leafs today. And
Holy
Gelf was
smokes.
there. Yeah. It was kind of cool. It was like it was very weirdly meta because it was I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this actually, but because there was no social media policy. But if I'm not showing anything,
We can edit it out later if you find out.
I'll find out if this is allowed, and then maybe no one will hear this. And if someone is hearing this, then I'm sorry for this long detour where I explain that you might not have heard this. But anyway. It's basically like they got the whole team, which is unusual in itself, to come in and play the new NHL 18 for PS4.
Wow.
In a tournament against each other. So it was like they're playing, 2-minute periods, 3-on-3, like one guy against one guy, and they did a big tournament bracket, and it was actually really fun. And they were actually really into it. A lot of the times when players are asked to do things, they've had a full day of other stuff.
Right.
And sometimes it's really unpleasant stuff. Like often... we do a shoot every year that, from TFC called Media Day, where basically the collateral for the scoreboard is all shot in one go. And the first thing that those guys have to do in the morning is go on a treadmill and do things like the Wingate test and like the VO2 max and all these other horrible things. And a lot of them puke because it's so difficult. And then you have to ask them to sit down and smile
on
and,
camera.
Tell me your favorite band. What's this? Like, what about the first time? You remember when you scored that goal?
What's
And,
your favorite ice cream flavor?
Exactly. So they're
Chips?
not always...
Are you a ketchup guy or a salt and vinegar guy? Tell me. Be honest.
Yeah, so they're not always thrilled to do that. But this was cool because, first of all, you have guys who are literally playing as themselves in the game, which is kind of cool. And then everybody else is there, sort of to cheer them on. So, I mean, nobody got razzed worse than the goalies because they're, of course...
getting lit up.
and also saving everybody. So, like, Freddie, the goalie, is there. He's playing on another game. And you'll hear from one side of the room, Freddie, you're killing me. And then from the other side of the room, oh, clutch, Freddie.
Freddie. Freddie. Thanks for chipping in, bud. Appreciate it there, pal.
Freddie Anderson saving the day and also getting everyone killed. So it was fun. So I saw Michael today on that shoot.
And who do I not want to face up against?
So you don't want to play against Zach Hyman. He was
a machine.
He was a monster, but everyone knew coming in. They're like, Hyman's going to kill us. He's going to murder us. He's definitely going to win. And he's like, apparently everyone's cheering against me. And like nobody really knew until he sat down. But then it became clear that was the case. He was a monster, and he went all the way to the finals. Although he didn't win, I won't say who he was against or who did win.
Suspense.
Only that the favorite did not win. But you don't want to play against him. You don't want to play against Kadri, not because he's particularly good, but because he'll chirp you to death.
I did an event with Kadri, or a shoot with Kadri years ago, where we went to a fan's house. And that's what they did, was they played like NHL, whatever it would have been at the time, 15, I would imagine, or 16. And he too was full of banter
Oh, yeah.
with this fan. And
Full
the fan,
of banter. What a
full of-
gentle way of describing Nazem Kadri.
He was shit talking the hell out of this fan, which he fucking loved it. Both of them did, because he's like, I'm getting the real NHL player experience, and Naz is like, fuck you, dude, get off my turf.
Right.
Like, you ain't gonna beat my 18 years of experience with your two thumbs.
Right, exactly.
Are you a gamer? Are you much of a gamer?
Not really. I was. There was a time where, like, yes, I was a serious, proper gamer, and now, no. I this year I got into it like a little bit because there was a game that I was waiting for to come out, The Last Guardian, which was like a sequel to Shadow of the Colossus, and I went and I bought a PS4. I was so fired up. I played it. It took me 3 days to beat it, and my PS4 has been collecting dust since then.
I go on these like really weird 1 or 2 week spurts where I'll get into it, but what'll happen is I dedicate every waking hour that I'm not working to this game.
Well, that's why I
because
can't do it anymore.
I'm so obsessed. And then I have to unplug myself and be like, yo, Clay, get a grip on reality here. This doesn't make you any money.
Right.
Or get you any sleep.
Or do anything really positive. I remember I dabbled in Zelda this year, Breath of the Wild. And it's the same kind of thing where you're like, there's how many shrines? 120? Okay, well, I have 106. I could probably do this for 14 hours. And then you have to have them all. You can't be satisfied with 119. You have to have them all. So that's why I don't do, it just takes over my life. I could have used that time to like go outside, or like I could have learned something, or maybe, come and done a podcast with you or whatever.
Created your own.
Created my own. Like there's a million things.
You could have decorated my office.
Well, I could have.
Yeah, it
I
would've
probably
helped.
wouldn't have.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. I've seen your place.
I think actually you were at my place while I was putting up shelves.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the last time I was over. Great little spot in the heart of Toronto. Yeah. We lucked out. We ended up just a few blocks from each other.
Yeah, that's true.
So everything, we grew up just a little bit from each other. We moved downtown. We're just a couple blocks from each other.
Mm-hmm. The rivalry continues.
You introduced me to the incredible AAA bar.
Ah, yes.
Which you had said was your favorite spot. It has very quickly become my favorite spot.
I'm almost nervous to talk about it on a thing where people will listen, because then they're going to go there, and then that means it won't be...
It's going to be busy.
Well, it's already getting there. It got written up in Blog TO, and I went in, and then all of a sudden I couldn't get a seat, and I was like, what's happened?
No, they should go... There's the AAA bar on the east side.
AAA pub.
That's... You know what? Honestly, if you guys are searching for something, that's the one to go to.
Yeah.
It's AAA pub.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to the other ones.
No.
You stick to the east side.
Yep.
They're very friendly people. Always a chair for you, and the best food in town.
You would hate the other one that Clay and I go to. You'd hate it. You'd have a bad time.
We only do it because of proximity to each other.
Yeah, it's necessary. It's mandated because, in my contract with them, I have to mention it on air, so I have to visit there a certain number of times. I would go to the good one, but it's not really up to me. So, just leave it.
Go to the good one.
Yeah.
And we'll keep going to the crappy one. We'll spare you the trouble.
We'll take the bullet.
So you go from being in school to working at this small production house to then working for one of the largest sports organizations in North America, doing a whole whack of sports video ranging from corporate stuff and corporate partner stuff all the way down to like directing players on these massive tens of thousands of dollar sets. I don't want to give the budgets away, but they're big sets. They spare no expense.
Some of the times. And then you decide it's time for a shift in your life. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even that I decided...
That was a plastic bottle falling off. Don't worry, it doesn't
Knocking
break.
things over. I didn't even decide that I wanted to shift. Really, it was sort of like a right place, right time kind of thing. I had done one travel shoot in Iceland with my friend who I met the first time that I was there, and he started a dive company in Iceland, and he said, we want to do a video. And I was like, okay, I can do this for you. He's like, I don't have any money, but you can stay at my house and we'll feed you and do all that stuff, and you can dive with us. I said, okay, that sounds amazing. I'll do that. So I had this one travel video on my reel type of thing, and I didn't really know what to do with it or what was going to go on. And I went to a movie, and in
As
advance,
most of us do.
As you do.
That's how I think through things. I go to a movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was just incidental, but I was at the movie, and while the trailers were playing, there was this like travel thing that played where in the slot of a movie trailer, and I was like, was this for a movie? I don't know. And it was just like a bunch of like sweet travel stuff and like a voiceover, and I was like, what was that for? And like this logo came up at the end from this company called G Adventures. And then 2 days later, I was at my dad's place, and a brochure from the same company, by coincidence, had come in the mail, addressed to me. They must have gotten my email from some list or something that I was signed up for.
It's because I once bought like a keychain.
Right, exactly.
Of a place that asked for my email to log in, and then now they send me junk mail for the rest of my life.
I'm getting mail for the rest of ever. But yeah, it was the same company, and I was looking, and I was like, this is what it was. And so I went online, and I was like, I wonder if they're hiring. And they were hiring, it was like videographer, shooter / editor, must be willing to travel all over the world and do all this stuff. I was like, you kidding me? Like, it didn't sound like a real thing. So I hacked together all the travel footage, like from vacations and from this Iceland video and from whatever I had, and applied. And unbelievably, I got it. It was like out of like 3,000 people that applied, I got it. I was really, really lucky. I remember actually sneaking away from my desk at MLSC at lunch to go to my second interview, and I'd like packed a blazer, which is something I would never wear in real life, but I felt like I needed to wear it to the interview. And I remember seeing someone in the concourse as I was walking back, and they're like, "You look sharp today." I was like, "No, I don't."
Thank you.
Don't look at me. But
big date.
Yeah, big date.
Big date.
Big lunch date. But I got it, and I remember we figured out the terms, and they're like, okay, well, we need you to send us your passport information because you're going to Indonesia. This is like before
on Friday.
It was like I did training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I went into the office on Thursday, and then I flew on Friday. Like, I didn't even get to know who my coworkers were or like set stuff up at my desk. It was like, yeah, we need to go to Indonesia. So you got to get this sorted, and you have to go. And then that was it. And I remember like the first day we had a really insane travel schedule. It was like 12-hour flight to Japan, and then 8-hour flight to Jakarta. And then we landed in Jakarta at like 2:00 in the morning. We had a train at 8:00 in the morning to go to Yogyakarta, which is another 8.5 hours. And so I had no idea what time it was or what was going on. And then they're like, okay, the first day we're going to relax. And I remember being in the pool, and I was sitting in the pool on like my third day of work or whatever it was. And there was like a waterfall over the pool, and like birds of paradise were landing in it. And I was looking around, and I looked at my boss who was on the trip with me, and I was like, is this my life now? And he was like, well, sort of.
Today it is. Tomorrow we get the whip.
I started doing that. I did that for 2.5 years at G Adventures.
And the move next was to, I don't know why I'm telling your story for you. It's like I'm prompting you each. You tell me what happened next on the next Stringer podcast.
If not for you, we would still be on like tangent number 1 talking about numbers in French. So I mean, I'm glad somebody's telling it.
1997. 1998.
Exactly.
I don't have any French listeners. It's safe.
Yeah, no, I did that for 2.5 years, traveling and editing, and it was crazy. We went, I went to like places I never would have gone ever in my life otherwise. Like I went to Antarctica when I was with them, which was crazy. I went like all over Europe. We did like a Euro rail trip where we did, I think, 6 countries in 8 days on trains all through Europe, and like Morocco, which is like I never would have picked, but it was just like unbelievable.
Kept your drone.
That was that episode. Yeah, so many. Yeah, it was really unbelievable. South America, like Colombia, which again I never would have picked to go to, but like all of them were just unbelievable. So I did that for 2.5 years. And then my goal was always to be a freelancer, and I'd always done it on the side ever since day one of employment, so I could, because I like being the master of my own destiny, and I like to be able to decide what jobs I want to do and what jobs I don't want to do. And I like the idea of setting my own hours. The idea of 9 to 5 has never been appealing to me, because like if I have 8 hours worth of work, as long as I get the work done on time, why does it need to be done in that 8-hour period? That's always frustrating. I find like a lot of creative people, I get a lot of my best stuff done at night, in the middle of the night.
I'm definitely a night person.
And I also really like breakfast. Breakfast is my favorite thing in the entire world. So my ideal day is I get up early and then I go for breakfast and then I read, because I can't read at night anymore, and I'm a big reader. And because now when I read at night, I fall asleep afterwards and I feel like I don't retain the last 3 or 4 pages that I read. Right. So now I go and I have breakfast and I read. I come back, I have a coffee, I sit down and read the news. I'm an old man, basically, at 30. And
do you have a highlighter? Please, you sit there with a highlighter over the news. You're like, oh, I got to remember this one.
I'm sure it's not far off. But and then I start work at like 11:30, and I'll work for half the day, and then I'll go meet a friend or have dinner or do whatever, and then come home from that, and then I'll work until like 1 or 2 in the morning.
That's my perfect schedule.
Yeah.
Bang on.
I get way more done. I feel good about it. The same amount of hours are spent working, or often more. And I never feel rushed or late or I have to be doing something. Yeah. It's just better. So freelance was always the goal. So I decided, in spite of ongoing travel opportunities, to leave G Adventures. And it was amicable, but it was at a tricky time, and it wasn't ideal for them. I left with no real plan, and I just started calling.
I'll find something. I know it. I will.
Yeah. I was like, this worked so well in 2008, so of course it'll work again. But I just basically started calling everybody who I'd worked with, and I was like, hey, so I don't have a job, and maybe you could give me one.
The idea was, I don't want a full-time job.
No, it was
I'm not looking to bunk in with you for the next 3 to 5 years of my life.
Right.
It's, do you have a shoot coming up?
Yeah, basically. It was, do you have anything that needs shooting or anything that needs editing? And I would get out and, just call people. And it was January that I had quit. And I spent all of January just in meetings on the phone, meeting people. I had about 6,000 coffee meetings. There's a great closed Facebook group for film industry professionals that I'm part of, where every time people were looking to crew up or looking to do anything, I would message them and talk to them, and I would go out and like just meet and give a million business cards out and have a million conversations just to tell people, yeah, I am a person, I exist. These are the things that I do. I'd like to do them with you if you have the time. Yeah, and then unbelievably, I ended up traveling more in my first year of freelance than I did at
No way.
Yeah. I'd created a reputation for myself as the guy who does the travel stuff, and it stuck, which is great. I mean, like that year was a crazy travel year, and I ended up starting to shoot a web series for Photographers Without Borders. I started working with Rolex, highlighting and profiling scientists for their awards for enterprise. I did a couple of things for G Adventures. I was the photographer in residence on their expedition ship. I did some stuff for Maple Leaf Sports, where they sent me to Africa and to the northernmost town in Sweden. And so I was all over the place. Like, it was unbelievable. And so now that's what I try to fill my days with as much as I can.
As much travel.
Yeah.
Get those passport stamps, dang it.
Yeah, I filled my 10-year passport in 3 years, so that was a success. I counted
Whoa.
that.
Oh, my 5-year passport is almost full. 10-year.
You gotta be. That's filling up. I think
it's just a bunch of U.S. stamps, though.
Still.
Right? It's like U.S. stamp, U.S. stamp.
You're probably on more planes than I am in a
probably,
year.
But I do a whole whack of short hauls.
Yeah.
That's why. Like, I think last year, I crossed 70 flights.
That's a lot.
Last year, I think I crossed 70 flights. This year, I stopped keeping track at a certain point. I just have to fill it in to see what. But now I'm getting the itch, and you probably hit it too. Well, you're going to Florida, and this probably helps scratch it, is that you travel so much for work, you just need to travel for yourself.
So what I've started trying to do is something that everyone always has told me to do, that I was always bad at, that I'm trying to correct, is tacking on extra. So especially at the difficult to get to or far away locations. So when I was in Thailand last year, I was teaching a workshop, a photography workshop, and I was like, I'm all the way here in Southeast Asia. I've come all this way. The diving is supposed to be pretty good. So I tacked on an extra, I think, 8 or 9 days, and
that's a decent tack.
It was good because
that's a full tack.
It was a full tack.
Yeah.
No, spared no expense. And I was like, I'm going to do my rescue diver certification, and also because Thailand is really cheap, I rented a villa in the hills in Koh Phi Phi, which sounds swankier than it is. I'm not some James Bond figure.
Brad Pitt.
The whole thing cost less than it would cost to stay in Toronto for
George
a weekend.
Clooney
No.
just rented a villa up in the hills. Oh, wait, no, that's Jeffrey Garriock.
Certainly not. I stayed there, in a villa for a week, and I just dove every single day. I did a course where I learned how to rescue people, and then I just dove for fun again and again and again and again and again, and went and, drank beers in the streets and made friends and hung out, and it was really nice.
I'm always curious because we're in an industry that's so fast-paced. And it's evolving, it seems, all quicker than I can even catch up to it. And I think this is media in general, not just film and not just television. Media keeps evolving and keeps growing. Has there been something, I don't want to say a learning, maybe it's a learning or maybe it's a piece of advice or something you've been given along the way that kind of sticks with you and sits at your core so that no matter what challenge you're up against, no matter what you have to face, you kind of go back and you're like, oh yeah, if I just do this, or if I just keep this in mind, or if I just follow this, then I know I can work through it.
There's a piece of advice that I always give, and I'm not sure where I heard
I like
this.
this better.
Well, no, I don't know. I'm sure someone has probably told me this.
No. It came to you in a dream in Thailand, sitting on a mountainside in a villa.
No, but I mean, I think it's something I always tell people who are going to work for themselves or who are trying to make something new or go into business for themselves or whatever the case may be is tell everybody what you do all the time. If you're talking to somebody that you don't know, tell them what you do, and don't be a dick. Don't bulldoze in and be like, "So, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a filmmaker.
This.
Let's talk about me." Yeah. Don't do that. But bring it up, or make it known, or somehow make a mention of it, because so often the connection you need is not where you think it is, or it's behind one person or two people, and so often, so many times, I've had somebody who I've been talking to about, some film that I've seen or a book that I've read or, where the best place to get an omelet is or whatever. They're like, oh, actually I have a second cousin whose brother's company needs a video. And then it turns out to be one of the better gigs that I do. So, you never know. Always make it known who you are, I guess, is the piece of advice that I would give. And that I always try and keep top of mind because, the opportunities are in weird places most of the time.
It's weird, though, and I'm sure you're the same as me in this. It's hard juggling humility with wanting to be present and honest with what you do or your ability in what you do, because I'd rather someone just tell them what I am. I would really rather someone just be like, hi, this is Clayton. He works in sports documentary filmmaking.
But not in front of you, because that's even worse.
That's even more awkward. Yeah. So I would imagine there's this funny balance that you have to find within yourself between your own humility, and I've known you for several years. I know you're a very modest person.
Don't say these things in front of me. I'm going to leave.
See?
I'm embarrassed.
Well, we're just about at our hour. Jeff is extremely handsome. His beard is the best in the world, and he's the best cinematographer that I know.
None of this
He's
is
shaking
true.
his head.
No.
It's one of my favorite that I've ever worked with.
Oh, that's very kind.
We've had a good time together.
That's my brush off line. That's very kind.
Oh, yeah. You don't know me that well. That's what I said. Clearly, you don't know enough people in this industry. I can introduce you to a couple real good ones. Have you met my friend Jeff Garriock?
No. Yeah, man. No, it's hard. Honestly, I'm not good. I'm not good with compliments. It's something that makes me a very awkward person in general. I don't know how. I've never learned the correct way to respond when someone says something nice about me.
Thank you. You're so kind.
That's very kind is what my default is. But I can't even look someone in the eye and say that. I look at my shoes and I shuffle off and I make an excuse to leave, and I quietly, cry as I regain my composure.
I suffer from that thing that many people do where it's like, you pay me a compliment, so I owe you one back.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I really liked such and such that you did. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Your hair looks great today. Right. Or whatever I can come up with on a moment's notice. I'm like, your brooch is very broachy.
It's like when you go to the movie theater and the person who sells you your ticket is like, enjoy the show. And you go, you too.
You too. All the time.
All the time.
And I go, shit.
Damn it.
You weren't present in the conversation. You weren't listening.
No.
I wanted to do this, but I wanted to save it to the end.
Oh.
Let's geek out a little bit on gear.
Okay.
Because I feel that we both kind of came up the ranks of various levels of gear, going from first DSLR and then up to different levels of cinema cameras. So tell me right now, what do you prefer? Like, and you can even range for this kind of shoot when I'm traveling. I like to take this kind of gear with me, or these are my favorite lenses that I'm using, or something like that. Let's geek out just for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm still digging that DGSN we came up with I thought that was a hot camera
at 350 frames per second in 8K.
And it's the Moroccan Secret Police.
No, who would have thought?
I don't know, man. I mean, before, like when I was younger, I would have been like, it's the red. The red is the greatest thing in the universe. I was obsessed. I was a big fanboy. And now I'm a lot more like sort of a tool for every task type of thing. Right. But I got into filmmaking so deep in the DSLR era that I'm really partial to those things because it's so much, so much camera and like a little tiny package. And especially for stuff, a lot of the time when you're traveling and you're filming something, like you're not always allowed to, but a little DSLR, you can be like, no, I'm just taking a picture like everybody else. This is fine. And you can get away with it. It's small, so you're not dragging it around. I've met a lot of grumpy 60-year-old camera guys where one shoulder is higher than the other because they've had a camera on it for their entire lives, and you and I and everyone we know all have various weird, terrible back problems from shooting, and DSLR kind of mitigates that. But I upgraded my Red in January to the weaponed Helium 8K, which is probably pointless. I don't know what I was thinking. It's a lot of money, and it's ridiculous camera. Like, you don't need 8K. That's
You're thinking
crazy.
We're going to shoot a short film.
Yeah.
That's what you were thinking.
Or something like that. So I've shot some stuff with it, and it is, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. But it's the kind of thing where it's too good for my own good. Like, the memory cards are 500 gigs. If you fill 2 of those in a day, your whole hard drive is done already. Yeah. So, like, I'm buying hard drives. I'm not joking. I have a tackle box at home that is full of hard drives. It is full. And then I have stacks on my desk. And then I have a RAID on my desk. Like, I'm overrun with removable storage, and it's like a bad thing in my life. It's like socks, you know, it's something that you just need that you hate.
Yes. They're just a pain.
They're just annoying.
Yeah.
And unlike socks, they're terribly expensive. And if
you don't get them for Christmas.
Right. If you lose a sock, you throw the other one out. If you lose a hard drive, you weep on the floor in a mess.
A hole in a hard drive is a very, very bad thing.
Very bad.
Red, I knew I've always been in love with your Red in the times we've gone out, and especially shooting sports, we've been able to use it. But on the DSLR side, what are you traveling with? What do you enjoy using?
I'm shooting Sony A7S II at the moment, which I'm really
represent.
Big fan of. Yeah, no, I honestly I've switched over completely. Like, I got my eyes peeled for the A7S III maybe next year, and then I might get that and use the A7S II as my backup. But it's become, at first it was my B camera, and now it's like my number one. Like, you can shoot in the dark in a cave underground with no lights, and it'll still expose. You can shoot 120 frames a second slow motion wherever you are. You can have 4K in your hand. You can have Zeiss was really nice and gave me a lens earlier this year. They gave me like a big compact zoom at 20. Compact is also not a word you should just describe this lens. I might want to think about that because it's massive. It's 5 pounds.
And they're heavy.
Yeah, 5 pounds, and it's like 12 inches long. So it's not compact at all.
It's 4 times the size of the camera and twice the weight.
Yeah, basically.
On an A7S.
But I had it on the A7S when I was in Africa, and like, it looked ridiculous. Like, I have a photo of it, and it looks almost silly. It's like, if you've ever seen, like an RV towing like a Volkswagen? You know how people it looks, it just doesn't look right. Like, it's like that. Like, it's just the things are the wrong way around. And but it was unbelievable. And like, it's that camera, the quality holds up to the lens, even though the size doesn't. And so having that and having it so small and so portable and be able to set it up in 1 second is awesome. So I'm a big fan of that.
So the A7S II, great camera. I'm a big fan. Not everyone can afford the compact zooms by Zeiss. They're beautiful.
I can't afford it.
I can't afford it. If you're traveling to somewhere exotic, what is there 2 lenses you like to have in your bag?
Personally, I really like to shoot primes as often as I can, and I have these Rokinon primes that are made out of plastic, and they're like dirt cheap, but they're 1.4.
Have you replaced yours yet?
No.
Still the original? That's incredible.
Yeah.
You're the only one that I know that has not had to replace it.
Bulletproof. Like, I haven't even had to replace the UV. Like, everything's perfect on them. And like, the one of them is like $300, and then the other one I think was $700. So I have a 24 and an 85 that I take with me all the time. And then I have the usual like 17 to 40, 24 to 70, 70 to 200, which is a lot of lenses. But like if I only had to take one, I would take if I can have two, then I'm going to take the 24 prime and the 85 prime. And
really?
I'll
just the
live
two
on those.
primes?
Yeah.
Just the two primes?
I used to challenge myself. One of the things I do when I'm feeling stagnant in filmmaking is I'll try and create rules so that I have to do things differently. And a lot of the times I would be like, okay, you can only shoot on prime lenses for this. And I would go with those two. And occasionally I would be like, I wish I had a 50. But for the most part, I can do pretty much anything on those two.
35 for me, and I think a 70 to 200. 35 prime. I spend so much time at 35. I just love it. I don't know why. You gravitate to certain focal lengths. But 70 to 200, I don't know if I'm ready yet to live without that.
Well, see, it depends on what you're shooting, though. Like, if I was shooting sports, I'm taking the 70 to 200.
Oh, of course.
If I'm shooting animals, I'm taking the 70 to 200. If I'm shooting that kind of stuff, then yeah. But you don't always need it. Like, if you're shooting underwater, I'm not going to put that in a housing. That's crazy. I need twice as much housing. Like, and what am I going to shoot that's going to be that far away that I'm going to be able to keep it stationary and get? So it depends. Like, it really depends. Like, if I'm shooting wildlife, I'm going to take 24 to 70 and 70 to 200.
Right, of course.
And then I'm good. And if I'm allowed a half, it's not really a lens, I'm going to take it 2 times so I can snap that onto the back.
I have it 2 times as well, and it changes any lens into a super lens.
Yeah, and they're awesome. And so like for like safari stuff or even for sports, if you're not sure where you're going to be standing, you're in an unfamiliar stadium or you're farther away than you'd like.
Just have it.
Yeah.
Just have it. It's so light. It's nothing in your bag.
Yeah, it's like not even the size of like the Thrifty 50. And then you just snap that on and you're good to go. So yeah, those are the things. The other thing I think that everybody should take with them no matter what is like an ND fader. It's more a photography thing than a video thing. But
variable ND.
Yeah, like
screw-on filter.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're notoriously shitty, but it's the way of taking one filter instead of taking 5. Because, I mean, in a perfect world, you'd take an ND3, ND6, ND9, but then you're carrying 3 things. Or you can get a fader, and you sort of have all in one. And that's really great for doing long exposure stuff. So if you're doing traffic trails, or if you want to do any kind of light streak stuff, or you're smoothing out waterfalls in the middle of the day, or doing any kind of things like that, like it offers you so much for how little of a thing it is. So I'm a big advocate for that. But like, again, it's totally a photography thing. I don't know if you really need it doing video because it has cold spots when it's all the way closed. And so anyway, yeah, that would be my other one.
And if there's one piece of gear that you heard is coming out or that you have recently purchased because it's new and fancy, anything you want to shout out?
I got these lights that are good, but no, the thing I want is I really like time lapses. We used to have a feature at G Adventures called Time Lapse Tuesday, and before that, I was never really a time lapse guy, and then they kind of got me into it. And now I'm obsessed, and whenever I have a chance, shooting time lapses is nice because you have to sit in one spot for a certain amount of time and just enjoy whatever's
Bring
happening.
a book,
yeah, or bring a beer.
Bring a beer,
I like
beer
to do
and a
that.
book.
Yeah,
you can have
like,
them both.
When we were traveling, like in Southeast Asia, I was in Burma with a friend of mine, and my friend who's a photographer, she loves doing star trails, and I love doing time lapses. So at night, if we didn't have to wake up obscenely early, or if we had to wake up and just sit on a bus, we would go out, we would find some place in the middle of nowhere, and we would set up with like some old temple, and you could see all the stars. And so I would set up time lapse, and I would shoot, over a period of like 2.5 hours, stars rotating around or clouds coming in, and she would do star trails, and it was awesome. So I got really into time lapses, and I think it's Edelkrone makes this teeny tiny slider that goes twice its own length through a feat of tricksy fancy engineering, and you can snap a motor onto one side and a little motorized head onto the middle of it, and you can program these fantastic moves into it, so you get these incredibly dynamic moving time lapses where it looks like your camera is like sweeping in or turning around or tilting or panning or doing all this other great stuff. And I've always wanted one. We used to have a rig like this at G, but it was like really old and really heavy. You had to carry basically
Old means heavy.
It was
With
like
almost
carrying a car
everything.
battery around with you, and then all of this giant 4-foot slide. It was so much stuff. Like it was an extra 2 bags of stuff. Whereas this Edelkrone thing, I think I could get into what I'm carrying anyway. So, and it's motorized and programmable and fancy and so on. So I would love to get my hands on one of those. The thing is that it's not really a priority, and it's fairly expensive.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, you know, the next time I have money and I'm like, you know, maybe I do need this.
Or if there's someone listening that
Yeah.
just has a pocket full of cash and you don't know where to burn it, Jeff Garriock would like this motorized head and slider.
Or if anyone wants
By
to
Edelkrone.
commission a time-lapse film, say if you're the tourism board of a foreign country I've not visited, or a star enthusiast, maybe you're in science, maybe you're just an enthusiast, look me up and perhaps you could pay me money to shoot time-lapses.
Know Your Onions is the name of the company. Where can they find you online?
KnowYourOnions.ca is the website for the company. You can catch me on Instagram at Jeffrey Garriock. That's where I post lots of photos
Is
of
he
things
sick
that I'm
shit?
doing. Yeah, hopefully if you know,
Awesome stuff.
if you're into it, you can check it out.
Huge fan.
And yeah, I don't really do the Twitter, so
Hey.
don't look for me on there. I'm on there, but
You don't
there's
have to.
There's no point.
It's just an egg.
Yeah.
Is it an egg?
Is it
It's
an
just
egg?
a picture of my face. It's basically an egg.
Oh,
No. That's I gave it to you.
Twitter is an
On
egg?
the Twitter egg. If you don't have an avatar, it's a Twitter egg.
This is how little I'm on Twitter. I didn't even know about the egg.
We've got onions. We've got eggs. Everyone, please be good to yourself and eat your vegetables.